Hello, xin chào các bạn. Hôm nay chúng ta có một khách mời rất là đặc biệt. Chị này là một chị mà làm ở một công ty mà mình nghĩ chắc tất cả chúng ta đều biết. Đây là chị Manisha Shah. Chị ấy là CFO, là giám đốc về tài chính ở công ty MOMO. Hello Manisha.
Hi everyone.
Manisha đã vận hành ở Momo cho nhiều năm rồi, và cũng đang quản lý về nhân sự của bên Momo. Hôm nay Linh muốn chị Manisha chia sẻ một chút về sự nghiệp của chị ấy, để cho các bạn thấy là một người mà có những cái sự nghiệp và những cái công việc trước đây ở những nhiều quốc gia khác. Vì sao chị ấy đã quyết định là sẽ qua Việt Nam để sống và để làm việc, và những cái lời khuyên, những cái mẹo mà chị ấy đã phát hiện ra trong những năm khi còn trẻ. Chúng ta sẽ đổi qua nói tiếng Anh nhé. Okay, hello Manisha, thank you so much for joining us today. So I introduced you a little bit to our viewers, but if you could go into a little bit more detail, I simply told everyone you are CFO and also head of HR at MOMO, but it would be great if we could hear a little bit about your background, how it all started and how you came to be in Vietnam.
Sure. Hi, thank you, Lynn. I'm really happy and excited to be here today. So I am, like you said, the CFO of MOMO. I've been at MOMO for about 2.5 years now. I've been in Vietnam for almost exactly 3 years today. And, my background is I'm Indian American. I was born in America, but also grew up a lot in India and went back to America for college. And I worked in many places since then. A few years ago, when we moved to Vietnam, I was looking for something interesting to do. I had a lot of finance in my background, some strategy, some other things. And I met a lady who talked about a startup that she had helped fund, and they were looking for their first CFO. And it didn't matter that I didn't speak any Vietnamese. So I decided to try it. And the company is great. You use MOMO, it's an easy app to use. It helps people, so it's growing really fast, and it's been a fantastic journey for all of us.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. When I look at your history, it is actually very impressive. You graduated from Harvard Business School, then you worked in investment banking in New York, then you were in London, then you were in India, and then now you're in Vietnam. So it's a very global, very successful career. When I look at your LinkedIn, when I look at your CV, it seems like you have the perfect career. It seems like you knew exactly what you wanted, and you went out and you got what you wanted, right? You just pulled it in. So, I mean, is that the truth? Is that what happened? Can you tell us about, what you were like when you were younger? How did you reach such great heights in your career? Were you always, and you knew exactly what you wanted?
No, I think it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. I always knew that I wanted to study in America. And I knew that I would need to get a scholarship to work there, to study there. So I worked really hard.
Did you grow up in India?
Yeah, so I grew up. My family returned to India when I was about a year old, and I liked a lot the liberal arts education, where you can study history and maths and everything at the same time. So I wanted that. I knew that I would need to get a big scholarship to get that. So I worked really hard. I got lucky. I got a big scholarship. I went to America, and I had a very diverse education. I studied economics and Asian studies, like modern East Asian studies. But I also studied in Russia 6 months. I did music. So it's the beauty of the liberal arts education. But then I finished 4 years, and I didn't have a clear skill, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to do a PhD, and I loved what I studied, so I had good grades, and I knew that I loved to travel and learn about different cultures. So I chose to work in investment banking because I knew that I could work abroad if I had that job, because all the big banks are in multiple countries. And I knew that I would have enough of a salary that I could pay off any debt. And I knew that the people that I would work with were really smart, and kind of ambitious. So I would learn something good. So that's really why I did investment banking. I ended up liking it a lot. I did end up working a lot abroad. So in my first year, I spent a few months in Thailand and like 5 months in Korea. And after that, I moved to London. So it gave me everything I wanted. So that's how it started. So I think that like when I was younger, I always thought you have to decide on day one what you want to do. And I think even when I took this job in Momo, and even when I'm in this job today, which is probably my favorite job ever, I still don't know what I will do in my next role. So what I've realized that if you do a job and you work hard at it and you develop certain skills, that is the most important thing. And then over time, you develop different skills and you become eligible for different opportunities. You know, I've had friends who've always wanted to know they want to do marketing. And that's great if you're that person, but I was never that person. So I'm the exact opposite of you, of what you thought. I had no idea what I would do. I never imagined that we would live in Vietnam. I never imagined that I would be the CFO of a tech company, but each opportunity kind of makes for something else, I think. And I think that if you work really hard and you try to excel and you try to learn something new in every job that you're at, then you develop the skill sets for the next job. In fact, when we hire at Momo, we don't always look for the people with the exact background. In certain things, it's important, like in a technical job, if you're coding for Momo, you need to know how to use Java. But for many other roles, a lot of our people did not have the exact background. What we looked for were people who could think, for people who have excelled in different roles. And I think that more and more jobs are becoming like that.
That's super interesting. So I find two things super interesting. So you basically had no roadmap, right? And I think that's what a lot of younger people, I remember myself in my 20s, I had no roadmap, but I thought everybody else did. And that made me very insecure in my life and in my jobs, because I thought, oh, everybody else knows the answer and I don't know any of it, right? So it's good to know that I think a lot of people don't really know where they're going. And you know, what you said is you just try really hard at exactly what you're doing right now. And then learning and growing in this role will lead to the next opportunity, right? Which then brings you into what you just said, which I thought was very interesting. So when you hire at Momo, sometimes you don't require the exact skills, right? And I know nowadays young people and even maybe more experienced people are looking for new roles, trying to find what it is that they're really interested in. Are there any tips you can provide for people who are thinking about maybe switching careers or maybe trying something slightly different? What do you suggest they should put on their CV, or when they're interviewing, how should they impress the interviewer if they don't have the exact skill, but maybe they have the passion or the energy, or what other characteristics are you looking for?
Sure. You know what? I'll just say one aside before I answer. Like, one of the things that I looked for, I tried to do in my earlier jobs, is not just work hard and do well, but also, very often early in your career, you're thinking, what do I want from this job? But you have to also think about, what impact am I making on my company? Or if you're very young, how am I helping my boss? That's equally important, because then the people you work with will try to help you succeed in your next role. So
exactly, yeah. I try to say, I try to tell the younger people, as a boss, I want my team members to make my life easy. If you can make my life easy, I will make your life easy.
Exactly. So, okay. So what do we advise for people looking to change? So, the first very simple advice is that in general, there's sort of three things. There is industry, there is location, and there is function in any job. So the easiest to change is to change one thing at a time. So don't try to change country, and switch from technology to consumer goods, and change from marketing to finance at the same time. Try to change one. If you've spent 3 years in consumer goods and you want to switch from strategy to finance, try to do that within the same. Those are the easiest switches, right? It doesn't always work, right? There was a time when I changed all three. It just makes it harder. So if you can keep something consistent, because that makes the employer realize that it de-risks you, right, to an extent from the eyes of the employer. So that's the first thing. And then the second is, if you are looking to change a role, which is quite different and it's 2 or more, then you need to, the resume needs to be bespoke to the company, right? So you say, okay, what's kind of the skill sets, not experiences, skill sets that I need for the new job, and what have I done in the past that shows that I have that skill set. So very often it's like data analysis, talking to people, presenting, project management. Those are skill sets which are actually very hard to come by. And they transform, they migrate very well from industry to industry. So instead of just focusing your resume on your key achievements in your current role, try to focus it on the skill sets that are relevant for your next role. So that's what I would advise. And this kind of skill sets that I talked about are skill sets that we have found in pretty short supply. And when we hire people to cross over, we look for that.
Okay, that is a very structured answer, and someone I can tell has very structured thinking from a finance background. So that kind of leads me into the next question, where I understand that while you've had a really great and successful career, you actually decided to come to Vietnam not because of your career, but because of your husband. Mm-hmm. Your husband had a job in Vietnam first, and he said, "Hey, Manisha, let's go to Vietnam." And you still had a great job in India. What was that decision like? Was it hard to say, you know what, I'm going to do what my husband wants and help make the relationship and the family, put that first instead of my career? Was that decision hard?
So yes and no. I would say the decision was maybe easier than the experience. So which I think is often the case in life for me, because I'm always quick to decide. So what happened for us is that my husband and me had been living in India for a few years, and we thought we wanted my husband's Italian, so we wanted one more international experience in a country which was not home to either of us. And so we were both kind of open to new opportunities. And Andrea got an opportunity in Vietnam, and he said, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, Vietnam, there's not so many finance jobs, right? It's not a Hong Kong or a Dubai or a Singapore where I can walk in and I might even know somebody, and they could help me get a job." But we looked at his other options, and I didn't have that many options. And so we decided to try it. So when I decided to try it, I said, okay, we go, and I don't really look for a job until we get there. And we had a 2-year-old at that point, and so we wanted to make sure that she moved over well and she adjusted, and she did, and she was a very easy traveler. But when I came, I said, I'm not going to work for a while, and I've worked in some way, shape, or form since I was 18. So I didn't realize how hard it would be for me not to work, right? And especially because it's Vietnam, and you go into shops and everything is like 100,000 dong. You forget that that's like $4, right? But you see all these zeros and you're like, oh my God, right? And you have to get used to it. And I wasn't used to it. It took me a while to adjust to the role of not working. And so my husband never forced me to look for a job. He said I should take 6 months, adjust, like have fun. But I found it difficult not to have something in my pipeline, And so I started looking for a job and started to work. So I think that what really helped is in making that decision is that both my husband and me were on the same page. Like it wasn't, I make it sound like a simple decision, but it was a decision we had talked about for a few months before we made it. And we made it, and we said, you know what, financially, personally, in principle, we are okay that if we go to Vietnam and Manisha doesn't have a job, we'll be fine. And so it was really me saying, okay, maybe even 2-3 years, I don't work, I'm okay. Him saying that. And so I think that really helped, right? That the fact that we spent a lot of time looking at our different alternatives and being on the same page. But again, right, at the end, like it doesn't matter. When you go into a new experience, there are always a lot of difficulties, right? And there are also some opportunities, and you will learn something about the place and more importantly about yourself. For me, there was a big learning that I wanted to have a job. I didn't think I would. I was like, I'm going to have fun for a year. I'm going to go for lunch and dinner and, learn a new sport. And I didn't want to do it.
Well, the way you described your decision-making process with your husband is really interesting because, for a lot of successful women, you know how to do your work, right? It's very structured. But then when it comes to personal life, it's a little bit harder, right? You have to be able to finesse and be able to be more flexible. Are there maybe a few tips you can provide, things that you do with your husband in order to improve the relationship, whether it's communication or activities you do together, or what are some things that you guys do to kind of maintain that relationship?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that good at it. Lynn, we are in a similar position, right? We both have partners that that have supported us but are also highly educated and have their own careers. I think that every couple has to find their way of communication, right? And no two couples communicate in the same way. I think the start is not. I think when you look for a partner, look for somebody who really respects you for your thinking and for you to have a career. Not just somebody who is a great guy and girl and just very successful in and of themselves. Just someone who really respects that aspect of you and likes you for that. If they do that, they will make the sacrifices required to support your career. If not, then no. And then you have to find your language, and it comes from talking, and there will be disagreements and there will be not. But I think the biggest blessing is that, Andrea wants me to have a career. He wants me to be successful. And so that makes it easier to do when you have it. But it is a lot of talking. It is a lot of listening. I would say don't apply formulas. I would say just because it's worked for Lynn or for Manisha, don't assume it will work for you. You will find your communication with your partner, which I think is the most important thing. So I think talk to them, understand what they are saying, really listen, because I think the thing about when you work, and especially when you are managing lots of people, you see the answer first, right? And so you think you are going to naturally go to that conclusion, but that's not the case in a relationship. So you really need to listen and understand where they are coming from. And that may be different from where you think they're coming from. So that would be my big learning.
That's great. Thank you so much, Manisha. I'm going to summarize really quickly in Vietnamese for the watchers. Chị Manisha đã chia sẻ một vài cái điểm mà Linh thấy khá thú vị. Thì trước tiên khi mà chúng ta nói về sự nghiệp, và nếu mà các bạn đang muốn đổi từ một sự nghiệp qua sự nghiệp khác, đổi hướng đi trong sự nghiệp của mình, thì chị Manisha cho lời khuyên là bạn trong sự nghiệp là chúng ta có 3 cái lựa chọn. Thứ nhất là vị trí, nghĩa là cái bộ phận mình đang làm. Thứ nhì là cái vị trí là cái địa điểm của công ty, và cái thứ ba là cái lĩnh vực. Thì khi mà bạn muốn thay đổi sự nghiệp của mình là mình nên chọn 1 trong 3 thôi, nghĩa là mình chỉ đổi 1 trong 3 cùng trong một lúc. Đừng có cố gắng đổi 3 món cùng một lúc, nghĩa là mình đổi từ tài chính qua tiếp thị, rồi sau đó mình đổi từ Hồ Chí Minh ra Hà Nội, rồi sau đó mình đổi nhiều thứ cùng lúc quá thì nó sẽ khó hơn. Nhưng mà nếu mà bạn chỉ tập trung 1 trong 3, mình thay đổi dần dần, thì cái quy trình đó nó sẽ khả thi hơn. Và sau đó khi mà bạn chuyển đổi thì mình phải xem lại những cái kỹ năng nào mình đã có mà có thể chuyển sang qua. Ví dụ là quản lý dự án, đó là một trong những cái kỹ năng mà cực kỳ khó, mà mình có thể chuyển sang từ tài chính qua tiếp thị, từ ngành từ một thành phố qua thành phố khác, từ một ngành lĩnh vực này qua lĩnh vực khác. Thì đó là những một cái lời khuyên chính để cho bạn có thể thay đổi sự nghiệp. Thì khi mà mình nói về những mối quan hệ cá nhân, thì chị ấy cũng đã, lý do chị Manisha về Việt Nam là bởi vì chồng của chị ấy đã tìm được công việc ở Việt Nam và chị ấy đã lựa chọn là mình sẽ theo chồng. Nhưng trong lúc đó là chị ấy có một cái sự nghiệp khá thành công, nhưng cũng đã quyết định là mình sẽ tạm dừng sự nghiệp để cho đi cùng với chồng, để cho mình có thể duy trì cái mối quan hệ với chồng. Và chị ấy cũng có lời khuyên là để cho mình có thể tạo một cái mối quan hệ tốt với chồng hoặc vợ của mình, là mình cần phải tìm cái nhịp của hai người. Nghĩa là một cách nào mà sẽ thành công cho hai vợ chồng khác có thể sẽ không thành công với hai vợ chồng của bạn. Nhưng cái điều quan trọng là hai vợ chồng mình phải lắng nghe với nhau và tìm cách để mình có thể giao tiếp, và mình có thể nói chuyện với nhau một cách để cho hai người hiểu, và có thể hiểu sâu hơn với nhau. Thì đây là những cái lời khuyên mà rất là lợi ích của chị Manisha hôm nay. Và Linh nghĩ là chị ấy là một người mà Linh rất là ngưỡng mộ, mà có thể giúp và những lời khuyên của chị ấy đã rất là giúp ích cho Linh trong những cái suy nghĩ của Linh. Và hy vọng các bạn đã học được nhiều thứ từ chị ấy, và hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong tuần tới. Thank you so much, Manisha, for your time, and we hope to see you again on another one of our broadcasts.
Sure. Thanks, Lynn.
Everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.